9 deals done, one case headed to arbitration, and the Rays closer might actually win.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And we are Kevin and Ulises.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who have been podcasting about the Tampa Bay Rays since 2019.
Later on today's show, we look at where the Rays payroll currently stands. In a few minutes, Edwin Uceta could be the top closer candidate for the Rays in 2026. But to start, the Rays are headed to arbitration with the aforementioned Edwin Uceta.
And we will talk about all of that thanks to FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Kevin, Edwin Uceta deserves to win his arbitration case coming from in 2024 where nobody expected anything and he became the best reliever, not only of the team, but of the American League. Yeah. Then a rocky start in 2025, the first 3 months, and then he completely shoved and changed that narrative by the end of the 2025 season with a $325,000 gap between what the Rays are saying that he should earn and what Useta is saying that he should earn. I think it's going to go his way.
Yes. For the record, Edwin Uceta and his team are asking for $1.525 million. The Rays just want to pay him $1.2 million. So like you said, a gap of $325,000. We're not talking about a gulf like Tarek Skubal, $32 million and $19 million. This is chump change for all intents and purposes. And I think that, to your point, Edwin Uceta has enough of a track record between what he did all of 2024 and the back half of 2025 to earn his spot of getting $1.525 million. I think that is very reasonable at the end of the day. And this is going to lead to some tough conversations in the arbitration hearing between the Rays talking about, hey, we don't think you should get paid this much for X, Y, and Z reasons. And Edwin Uceta's team coming back and saying, we do deserve this much for X, Y, and Z reasons. So at the very end of the day, you hope that the conversations and the debate and the arguments are not overly hostile and both sides can, whatever is decided by the arbiters, that, Edwin Uceta won't have any hard feelings, but that's a tough needle to thread, if you will. And I'll say this, look, I think Edwin Uceta has a huge case here in his favor, but if we go back, the last time the Rays went to hearings, that was in 2024 with Jason Adam and Harold Ramirez, respectively, and the Rays won those cases. So they got some brainiacs up there that'll, pick apart any little thing to try to, save their shekels there.
And there was a quote there by Neander on the Tampa Bay Times saying, we've got a pretty good track record of when we get in there, we don't make it personal. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Rays players feel that way, right? Because you might feel that way, but for them, it might feel a little bit different. Hopefully it doesn't feel personal. And I don't quite remember what Jason and Harold had to say about it, but I do remember that Ryan Thompson, who went to arbitration, made a very long, really informative thread on what goes on in those arbitration cases. I don't think he said anything bad about the Rays, but about the way that it is handled. The process itself is not great for players. Let's remind guys, if you don't know or if you forget, it's either of the two figures. The arbitration judges, they can't just judge, okay, let's go in the middle of the two figures. It's either the Rays at 1.2 or Useta at 1.525. So it's either one of those two figures. You can't go in the middle. So it hopefully doesn't get personal. Hopefully it's not a thing that creates bad vibes, but we've seen it in the past in other teams that players are incredibly hurt by what is said there. I think the most recent one that I can think of that was pretty knowledgeable by the fan base of MLB was Corbin Burns with the Milwaukee Brewers. He was pretty affected by that one.
Yeah, and look, if you're Edwin Uceta, you look around and see the other arbitration agreements that were settled with the Rays. 9 other players: Griffin Jax, Ryan Pepio, Josh Lowe, Nick Fortes, Garrett Cleavinger, Steven Wilson, Brian Baker, Richie Palacios, and Kevin Kelly. And you look and you see, well, Steven Wilson hasn't thrown a single pitch for the Rays, and he's getting $1.52 million. Garrett Cleavinger is getting $2.4 million. Griffin Jax is getting $3.565 million. And Griffin Jax went 0 for 6 in all his save opportunities with the Rays last year. So Edwin Uceta is probably thinking to himself, what gives? I mean, again, he's not asking for $5 or $6 or $7 million.
No.
This is reasonable in the grand scheme of things. And I get it for the Rays. I mean, for 26 other teams, $300,000 is not that big of a deal. But when you're dealing with a payroll that is very low compared to the rest of the league, you feel like you need to kind of save every coin that you can. But again, at the end of the day, we hope that it's not hostile negotiations or arguments, I should say, and both sides can move on from this and have a successful 2026. Yeah. But I will say, not to just bash on the Rays, if you look at some of the other arbitration exchanges across baseball, there are a couple differences that are pretty much that minuscule. I mean, we do see a couple $300, $400, $500,000 differences. Mainly, I would think with the low revenue teams, if you will.
I do want to say, though, obviously you're right on the fact that, $300,000 is more for the Rays than other teams. And you're right about that. But let's also not forget that this is also done as a measure to suppress players' salaries so that the next year that gap is not as big next. Because once you hit a figure, now you can only go up.
Yes.
Like, for example, Shane McClanahan, he had that $3.6 million deal for 2024 where he didn't pitch, had it in 25, and then they agreed on the same one. They didn't agree for less money, did they? Like, that's how it works. Once you hit an escalator, it's going to be very difficult for you to not just at least be at the same regimen. So for the Rays, they're also thinking, well, if we are able to suppress this at 1.2 and somehow win it, now next year, that salary is going to be harder for it to jump that much higher. So also it makes it more interesting for other teams to say, hey, trade deadline, that's a nice little salary. So they're also doing it for that purpose too, for themselves and for the opportunity for other teams to say, hey, that's a very attractive salary that player has.
Right. Now, hoping for a W in the arbitration case, Edwin Uceta will aim for many saves during the 2026 season. Well, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, they become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new: boosts, bonuses, surprises, and so much more. So before tip-off, be sure to check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your first listen of the day. We appreciate it. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And if you want to take it up a level for just $5, you can join the Everydayer Club and get this podcast with no interruptions, no ads, and members-only Discord. Go to lockedonrays.supercast.com or check the link in our show notes to learn more. Edwin Uceta could lead the Rays in saves in 2026. Ulises, about a month ago, Mark Topkin, of course, of the Tampa Bay Times, reported that the Rays, at least initially, plan to roll out a closer by committee with Useta, Garrett Cleavinger, and Griffin Jax. And when you look at it that way, you understand a little bit more why the Rays were like, yeah, we're not paying Shane McClanahan $11 million. He can go to Miami and earn his $13 million because we have three guys that can do the job of one guy at least for, I don't know, a third of the money, half of the money overall. And when you look at Useta in his profile in 2024 and the back half of 2025, he could be primed to lead the team in saves, especially when you consider Griffin Jax. He was unsuccessful in his save opportunities last season, and depending on how the starting rotation shakes out, he could be more of a flex guy, or he could at some point be inserted into the rotation, which could ultimately leave Useta and Garrett Cleavinger. But, you know, Useta, if we're just looking at him specifically, he has the stuff in the repertoire to be a closer, if not just an extremely reliable high leverage reliever. Let's recall that even despite starting out slow in 2025, he gave us 76 innings as a reliever and accumulated 103 strikeouts. I cannot remember many Rays relievers or many relievers in baseball who notch that many strikeouts. So he does have that swing and miss stuff to his name,
which is so important when you're trying to close out games. Not put the ball in play. I don't care. Get that strikeout, no matter what, right? That's a strikeout is an out. Hopefully, you know, if the ball doesn't go into the backstop, but really, he has that stuff, and it's that fastball changeup combination that is so lethal for him. And he was able to just basically do whatever he wanted in the last 37 innings of the 2025 season. He had a 1.70 ERA in 37 innings with 54 strikeouts. I mean, it was like, whoever is in front of me, I will strike him out. That is such a positive value for a back end of the bullpen guy. And Kevin, you're not that far off from the truth. I know you were being hyperbolic, but really you're not that far away. Jax is making 3.5 mil. Cleavinger is making 2.4. That's 5.9. If, let's say, the Rays win this case, that'll be 7.2-ish million dollars that the Rays are going to have for those three guys instead of paying Pete Fairbanks $11 million. So,
and Pete Fairbanks never threw 76 innings in a season. He maxed out at like 52.
So then you're thinking, okay, well, closer by committee, we can do this by almost half the money. You know, so it definitely was a conversation there that happened in the front office. But with Useta, I think hopefully if he wins the arbitration case, I think that ultimately is a psychological boost for him. Hopefully he wins it. Rays fans want him to win this. We want him to go into the season feeling good. And guess what? We want him to be amazing for the DR because he's going to be playing the WBC. So we want him just primed with the ego at his best, because that's exactly what you need when you're facing the best hitters in the ninth inning.
Yeah. And even if you could look at it both ways. He wins his arbitration case. He goes in with positivity and motivation. If he loses his arbitration case, then he's motivated as well. And he wants to prove the Rays wrong in some sense. And he wants to explore why he is more valuable than what he's getting paid, which, you would think only help his cause. And, couple things working for Useta. You mentioned the fastball changeup combination. And if we look at his Savant page from last year, his chase percentage was in the 93rd percentile, the whiff percentage in the 96th percentile, the strikeout percentage in the 94th percentile, hard hit percentage in the 80th percentile. And I would just imagine pretty much for every Rays pitcher that going from Steinbrenner Field to the Trop should negate some of those home run opportunities or long ball opportunities. So as long as Useta can throw strikes, he should be money, I would think, in 2026.
Yes, and also with the fact that he doesn't really get a lot of ground balls, that means that fly balls could be some damage,
Yes.
which what you're saying with Steinbrenner Field, those eventually became home runs. Maybe with Tropicana Field, you can suppress those fly balls. So he should, in theory, become even better by
Yeah.
going to Tropicana Field. I'm really excited about this. Now, I will say, if what we're saying is true in our hypothesis that the Rays might not be long for the division title in 2026 nor a playoff push, well, then Edwin Uceta becomes a really nice priority poker chip to deal at the trade deadline for sure.
Yeah, him and Yandy Díaz and maybe a couple others as well, especially if Garrett Cleavinger and Griffin Jax prove themselves, then hey, even a reliever, you can find some good value for that player at the trade deadline. And Useta, I mean, he's pretty much entering the prime of his career. He just turned 28 last Friday. So, you know, he should still have a lot of life in his arm for the next several years to come as well. Now, the Rays, we talked about money a little bit. The current payroll projections, unfortunately, won't allow for many more moves. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your first listen of the day. We appreciate it. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the land. Ulises, as the math sits right now, the Rays payroll sitting at roughly $75 million gives little leeway for a flashy acquisition.
Before we start, I want to tell folks, Fangraphs and Tampa Bay Times, I don't see the mathing here, because it says for the 8 signed players, it's about $42.5 million. And then for the arbitration guys that settled was around 19 million. 42.5 equals 19 mil. That's 62.5. Where they're getting 72 to 75 mil, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I don't know if there's some bonuses or incentives or guys that are no longer on the roster that they're paying salaries to. I really don't get it either. But that's according to the press, is that their payroll presently sits at $75 million.
Exactly. That's what they're saying. 75. I will say, though, maybe like $1 million buyout for Pete Fairbanks is included in there, and the discrepancy, I don't know. However, let's play with that number, $75 million. There is not a lot here for a flashy acquisition, like you said. The Rays now are basically left with, let's say, $10-15 million more to play.
Yeah,
I know
if that.
the Tampa Bay time says 15 to 20, but like we said, the math isn't mathing on our side, so we're going to be conservative here and say 10 to 15. Given the fact that Enoceris the other day was saying how the formula now has changed from $8.5 million per WAR. Now it's being evaluated at $11.5 million per WAR. So you're saying that 11.5 is one WAR player? I don't think the Rays can get that much of a flashy acquisition if that's what the rates are right now, unless it's something completely under the radar that nobody is thinking of, and then they pop off. Then, okay, fine. You got your acquisition, and it ended up being flashy. But from the front end, that to get a guy that people know, it doesn't seem like that's in the future for the next 2-3 months.
Which, by the way, one WAR really isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things. So
it's
the fact that you're paying $11 million on average for a guy that's a little bit above replacement level. That means the game is tougher nowadays. Yes. With the Rays payroll as it stands, we're not getting Alex Bregman. Heck, he went to the Cubs. We're certainly not getting Alex Bregman. We're not getting Kyle Tucker. We're not getting those big names. We're not even getting Ketel Marte, because he is remaining with the Arizona Diamondbacks, as it's been recently reported. So that was fun for a little bit when we had the whole, hey, Ketel Marte could be a Ray. What would it take to get him? No, he's staying put for right now. But I posit
I did have a couple of back and forths with people on Twitter. I gotta stop that. I gotta stop talking to people that don't have a damn picture on their
They don't
profile.
have an avatar. It's, an egg,
yeah.
a blue egg, a red egg, whatever.
Rays fan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Anyway, they were saying like, well, Ketel Marte is gonna come, or like, oh, and there's a lot of more money flexibility, and Zach Littell is an opportunity. All right, why are we doing this? Why are we just like blowing up smoke to ourselves? Like, just let's live in reality a little bit. But
we do this every year.
Yeah, I digress.
All that said, do you think there's enough maneuverability to get a guy of Cedric Mullins caliber or Steven Matz caliber? I mean, can you throw out $5 to $7 to $8 million for another veteran player?
I believe that 7.5 million is exactly the cap. The Steven Matz is the cap, 7.5. Now, is there a guy that's going to fall through the cracks in February and is willing to just take a 1-year, $7.5 million deal? There's always a guy like that.
Right.
There's always a guy like that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the Rays can get somebody that not only fills a positional need, but is also a veteran. We have way too many young guys, impressionable guys. You need a good guy in that clubhouse, good leaders, Matz, Mullins, that Fraley, that type of guy that's been there, done that.
Something at the catcher position, the shortstop position, maybe another pitcher. That's what you have to work with right now.
Exactly. So hopefully it not only, it covers a positional need that you have in the roster, but also gives you that, mentorship, leadership in the clubhouse.
And it also means that, hey, Nick Fortes, you better get it together because you're presently getting paid $2.535 million. Josh Lowe, you better get it together because you're getting paid $2.6 million. I mean, if you have less than one more season, then the Rays might be making moves next year to fill your spot. That's just where it is at this point.
And I'm sorry, except for Cedric Mullins, nobody in the outfield has a starter position right now.
Right.
I know Josh Lowe had that 23 season, but that 23 season is getting, black and white in terms of archives, memories. It's getting
the same thing with Shane McClanahan. What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? And it sucks, obviously, because it's out of their position, with their injuries, but you have to produce ultimately. And in the outfield, there's a lot of competition and a lot of guys who want that job and a lot of guys who are pre-arb. So that means they're cheaper, which means the Rays might be willing to give more of a shot than the guys that are already in arbitration.
That's how it goes. And on that note, we want to thank you for listening. We hope you have a wonderful day. And we want to remind you that you can be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. We will talk to you later.